Hi, I'm Trevor Thrasher, and this is the first part of my lecture on home defense, reality, risk, and response. It's a seminar about protecting your home and your family from home intruders, burglaries, incidents in and around your home, giving you some basic data points, some response actions you can take, and of course, a lot of mindset and awareness that can help keep you and your loved ones safe. Again, my name is Trevor Thrasher. You can find me on Substack at threatproof.substack.com or at graygroupsecurity.com. All right, let's get started. The reality of burglaries and home invasions in America paints a picture that is pretty grim. There's a significant chance in your lifetime that your home may be burglarized or invaded. There are about 3.5 million burglaries in the United States in a year. And again, in a lifetime, about 8 out of 10 people will have their home burglarized or invaded. That's an 80% chance. When those homes are broken into, there's a 25% chance that someone is actually home during the incident. And in about a quarter of those cases, there's somebody who's assaulted inside of the home. So when it comes to a risk assessment of when you might possibly need to use violence, home invasions and burglaries rank up there very high in those situations that are probable and very consequential in nature. Now, the dynamics of these home burglaries and home invasions are kind of interesting. So, offender familiarity is basically whether the occupants knew the person who was the suspect. And for burglaries, the occupants knew the suspect in about one third or 33% of those incidents. Now, when it comes to home invasions or violent burglaries, it's about two-thirds of the time where the person that is the perpetrator is known to the people inside. Now, there's obviously some reasons for that, and if you follow the news, you'll know why a lot of home invasions occur, and we'll discuss that as we go forward here. When it comes to force used, offenders are unarmed in about 61% of the cases. So, in the majority of the cases, they don't enter with weapons. But what I've seen quite frequently is that offenders will make use of weapons in the home to help them either break into other parts of the home, work through locks, jimmy doors, or to arm themselves. And the reason for that is that possession of burglary tools is a separate charge. And of course, if they use a deadly weapon, during the commission of something like a burglary, it can really enhance the penalties for them. So they tend to not carry those weapons when they do it, but they will find them in the home. And it can be something as simple as a knife laying out in your kitchen, or of course, if they stumble upon a gun in the house that's unsecured, they would possibly use that as well. Now, about 12% are armed with firearms, and that's in the United States, and that number is going to go down quite a bit or up depending on what country you live in. When it comes to victim injury outcomes, what's interesting is there's really no statistical difference between victims who comply and their injury rates or victims who resist in their injury rates. So, about 9% of victims who are attacked in the home are seriously injured, and about 36% have some type of other relatively minor physical injury. Now, um, again, when it comes to resistance, we find the same patterns we see in street defense. The worst thing you can do is use half hearted resistance, right? Measured defense. The best things or the most successful things are either nonviolent, for example, drawing attention, fleeing out of your home, barricading yourself, and calling 911. Those things will tend to be relatively effective and keep you from being injured. On the other end of that, firearms or another deadly weapon, while defending yourself with complete commitment, is often very effective as well. So, did one study in Atlanta, it was 200 burglaries where violence was used, and only in about 1.5% of those did the people resist with firearms. But when they did, in all three of those incidents, the occupant avoided injury completely and stopped the crime from being committed. So I'm not saying there's going to be a 100% success rate if you use a firearm. There are obviously some clear challenges. As with any response, you have to measure your capabilities and what you need to do right now with the exact situation you face. No amount of data can tell you what to do in a specific situation. Now, how criminals enter your home is really not remarkable. 34% come right through the front door. That is the most common entry point. After that, a first floor window at about 23%, and then a back door at 22%. Now, back doors are often less secure than front doors. And I'll give you a little hint here. I go much deeper later in the presentation on the design of your yard and your house and things of that nature. But understand that privacy and privacy fences work both ways. So if a criminal looks at your home and sees that they can get into your backyard relatively quickly and then they can operate in some privacy back there. In other words, neighbors are unlikely to observe them. They will take a lot more time and make entrance more carefully to make less sound. And then, of course, they'll be able to spend more time in your home. Because if they do something more obvious, like kick in your front door, it's going to be more likely to draw attention from neighbors or passerbys. But if they can operate with impunity in your backyard, that's going to be a very likely point for them to make entry. Now, unlocked entrances are used about 12% of the time because it's just an easy opportunity target. And in some communities, people do not lock their front or back door, even at night, which I found kind of odd. Now, there are plenty of times during the day where my home is probably unlocked up front or the back door is probably unlocked. So I'm letting my dog in and out. But I do live in a relatively risk free neighborhood that's very open. And I have neighbors that are around all the time that could see any type of intruder. So you always have to weigh the risk versus reward and how you want to live your life. Garages are entered about 9% of the time, and they are a weak point that many overlook. Of course, if the garage door is open, that provides easy access into your home. And sometimes people forget to close their garage doors at night or they leave them open inadvertently during the day. And I'm sure that's happened to almost anyone here. But I'll also give you a fair warning on this. Every garage door manufacturer in the United States has to have basically an emergency pull tab, which is a rope that's linked to the top of your garage door. And when you pull that tab down, it unlocks your garage door. So if you were trapped in your garage in a fire and the electronic systems in your house had failed, you could grab that pull tab, pull it down, it unlocks your garage door and allows you to lift it up. Criminals have figured out how to get to that pull tab through the sides of your garage door and through the frame with different variety of tools. And I've seen them get access to the garage in under 30 seconds that way. So there is a simple thing you can do to secure that pull tab that will prevent a lot of those break-ins through the garage door where they pull on it. The second floor is only entered in about 2% of cases. And it's kind of funny because the traditional uh, movie method of a burglar getting into your home is to climb up a tree and come into the second floor window. It does occur, but it's extremely uncommon. Obviously, it's going to be harder, it's going to be more risky, and it's going to draw a lot of attention. Keep in mind that in the United States, the vast majority of burglaries occur during the day when the burglar believes nobody is home. Now, this is reversed in countries like the UK, where most burglaries occur at night, regardless of whether the person's home or not. And the reason for that is because in the United States, burglars fear having to deal with armed citizens in their house. And in a country like the United Kingdom, they don't worry so much about someone being armed and shooting them dead. So, pros and cons to everything when it comes to the Second Amendment as well. When you hear the term forced entry, it often does not believe what the media would like you to believe. So if you hear that the intruder forced his way through the door, there's typically one of three things that happen. Now, someone completely opened the door and basically invited the person into their home, but they will make it seem like the person forced their way in because they don't want to admit psychologically that they didn't do any type of threat assessment, did something kind of dumb. Or someone will completely open the door to see who's outside and then they will rush in through the door. And no door is really forced, they just force their way past the person. Or someone will partially open the door in a way that really exposes them. And I cover this in my classes. If you're going to open a door, I teach a certain way to do that. But they'll open up a door even partially haphazardly, and then the attacker will make use of that open door and then will sort of force their way through it. But in all these cases, when you hear forced entry, it most often means that somebody opened that door to some degree and the attacker simply exploited it. Okay, and I've used this example before in one of my Substack posts, but let's watch this video because there's a lot to be learned from it.
The peace of a bright, sunny Texas morning shattered by unexpected visitors. When authorities say two men forced their way into a Houston area home with guns, one posing as a food delivery worker. Ben Bates owns the home but was away. It was his daughter who answered the door to tell them they had the wrong house.
So, first of all, you have a guy that comes to the door for food delivery and you haven't ordered it. So, unexpected intruder in your home. And it's daylight out, and I get that. He's wearing a dark baggy hoodie, which is what I cover as one of the number one things that criminals wear. He's got a dark face mask on and a hat and gloves. So we call that a light disguise, or in this case, it's actually more than a light disguise. So that's so he can avoid his face being seen by the camera. So he probably fully expects there to be a ring camera here and has probably surveilled this house to some degree. but he's got gloves on and it's Texas and it's bright and sunny and a ski mask. If you automatically open your door for a masked person who you don't know outside, then you clearly are not paying attention to your gift of fear, and you have clearly lost your survival sense, which is evident when you listen to this young woman. Now, she is probably a very kind person, and she has not gone through the mindset shifts that I often preach. The first one being that no matter how you live your life, someone may still try to attack you. Number two, that your self defense or your personal protection is your responsibility. And number three is that you have to give yourself permission to act and, in some cases, use violence to defend yourself. Clearly, she doesn't recognize those shifts in her mindset that are necessary to keep her safe. Her first thought is that she wants to open her door, come outside, and tell this masked intruder right away that it is not her house that he should come to, because she wants him to be efficient and not get in trouble and make sure that he takes his order to the right house. Now, if you look at the food delivery bag, what do you notice here as well? It's floppy. There's clearly no food in it. And then if you look further, ask yourself, where is his delivery car? So delivery drivers want to be fast and efficient. They're going to park typically with easy access and easy viewing right to the front door. So it's a short trip for them. So you have the placement of the car. You've got nothing in the bag. You've got the dark baggy hoodie. You've got the hat over his head with the ski mask and the gloves, and coming to your house without an order whatsoever. So layer upon layer of threat indicators. And if you look a little further, there's another occupant in his car, and that is his accomplice. So once that door gets opened up and he rushes in, the accomplice will bail out of that car and head into the home afterwards. Now, to make this situation worse, her father sees it all happen.
He came with a DoorDash bag and knocked on the door, and that's when my daughter answered. And then as soon as she opened, he forced his way in.
Bates says the suspects zip-tied his daughter's wrists. Her 1- and 3-year-old sons were also there.
Your daughter and your grandkids, how are they doing right now? Have you talked to your daughter?
I have.
What did she say?
She's terrorized, but she's okay.
A quick-thinking neighbor realized what was happening and called 911.
I got a message from my neighbor who said, you need to get home because, the police are there and there's gunshots.
Bates quickly pulling up the video from his Ring doorbell camera to see what had happened.
I can see the guys when they entered, and I hear my daughter scream in terror, and it's kind of the worst thing a father can ever experience, and they were threatening her, threatening to kill her. It was just the worst thing.
Police arrived in a matter of minutes, finding the armed men inside.
The suspect came out of what we think is a bedroom and shot immediately at the officer. The officer returned fire, did not strike the suspect, but that was the suspect that ran out the back.
That officer, Scott Durfee, was shot in the leg, while his partner found the second suspect in another room and arrested him. In the midst of the chaos, Bates says his daughter managed to break free of her restraints and grab her children.
We don't know how,
So ask yourself how terrifying that must have been for him to review that video. And also, I can tell you from experience, as someone who I've watched my friends fight in the ring, right, in a organized competitive fight, and that gets you pretty amped up because you're cheering them on and you see when they're in danger, when they're out of danger. But I've also experienced this as a member of the Special Forces and other jobs that I've done, where I literally have watched either some type of camera system or drone feed of my friends in direct close combat with the enemy. And man, I'll tell you, that is really hard to do, is to watch that close combat occur where it's life or death, and it's not a competition whatsoever. And you're definitely cheering on your friends and you're trying to help them out on the radio whenever you can. But man, that can be very traumatic for somebody to experience there. Also, this ended up with a police officer shot in the leg, and eventually the two suspects were captured. But the mom was tied up on the floor when all this happened, and her kids were very vulnerable. Although this didn't end well, an officer was seriously injured, it could have ended much, much worse for that lady. And ask yourself what a 1-minute lesson would have done. If her father had set his daughter down and said, look, you're home alone with the kids during the day. If somebody comes to the door, here are the things to look for. Don't open the door for a stranger. Look to see if they're wearing a disguise. Don't believe they're a delivery person. Make sure that you go through a checklist and you make a deliberate, intelligent decision to open that door, and only after you go through some type of verification or interrogation to determine that that truly is somebody that is supposed to be there and come to the home. So an ounce of prevention is worth a lot of cure here, including a gunfight and a kidnapping. All right, next I'm going to cover not only the critical don'ts, the critical do's, and 4 critical action plans you need to have when it comes to defending your home. So I often talk about those 1% efforts that can make you 100% more safe. Now, obviously, nothing can ever completely guarantee your safety, but if you just spend 1 hour a week oriented around your personal safety, you can easily make you and your family 100% more safe. And then with each additional 1% or each additional effort, you can layer that 100% on each other time and time again until you're 1,000% more safe than the average person out there. It doesn't take a lot of work. You need to regain your sense of survival. You've got to remember your gift of fear, and you have to take appropriate actions when the time comes. Do me a favor and let me know what else you want to see. This is an hour-and-a-half presentation that doesn't even include the hands-on skills that I cover in other seminars. If you are a paid subscriber, I will give you a PDF of the entire presentation with a link down below. And now you're not going to have the videos at your disposal, but you can see the basic framework of my home defense plans and use that to your advantage. So become a paid subscriber, support what we do here, make yourself more threat proof every week. Take care.